Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chief Chat. What is up, my exchange family from all over the world, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chief Chat. My name is Chief Master Sergeant Kevin Osby, and I'm your Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Army and Air Force Exchange Service. Before we get started with our guest today, I would like to introduce my lovely co-hosts, Kiana Holloman and Emily Zarsk. How you doing, ladies?
Hi.
And welcome to the show, Emily. This is Emily's first Chief Chat.
I'm so excited. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome. So I'm here reporting live. Say that again. Was that Kiana?
Oh no, I was just telling her we're so glad to have her on.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, y'all did an awesome tag team. For those that don't know, they were down in Fort Hood doing modeling shoots for our American Eagle line that just kind of rolled out. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm reporting live from sunny MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. And we have a wonderful guest today. So without further ado, Kiana, please introduce today's guest.
Thanks, Chief. So I'm so excited to introduce today's rockin' awesome guest. He's a member of a prog rock band, and his music has been praised worldwide. Today, he's here to give a military exclusive look at the band's sophomore album, Remnants. So please give a warm Chief Chat welcome to 4 Trips Ahead lead vocalist, Peter Wilson.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, Chief Master Sergeant Osby. I really appreciate you making time for me, and I appreciate your service, and I'm really excited to be on the show with you all.
Awesome. So can you tell our viewers where you joining us from today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm joining us from not so sunny New York City. Yeah.
So, Peter, I read somewhere that the pandemic was kind of a catalyst or like a rebirth, if you will, for the band. And I feel like for most of us, the pandemic brought a wide variety of emotions. And I guess within the last year of it, a bit of energy to kind of push us forward in our desired direction. So how have you and the band been faring during the pandemic?
That's a good question, Kiana. Thanks for asking. Rebirth is a good term, but I think it hit us just as hard as it hit all of you and everyone. And I think for artists, the pandemic was particularly troubling because a lot of what we do is public, and our interaction with our art and sharing with people. As a musician, our bread and butter is live performance and is touring and is sharing our music. And we were kind of literally smack in the middle of recording an album. So there was the way we normally record is we record kind of in halves. So we had a lot of great songs. So we figured let's go in and record. And then smack in the middle of us recording, we thankfully finished the basic tracks for 5 songs. And then we plan to take some time down and work on some more material and play out a little bit. And right when you have these best laid plans, we had a global pandemic. So it made us kind of take a step back and get tighter with our families, like many of us have. And then kind of in our pursuit to try to make sure that we were moving forward and not getting really pulled down and depressed about the situation, we decided to be really kind of productive. And our label kind of said, well, why don't you, if you have this music, why don't we just release it as an EP? And that way, people would be listening. And actually, I think it was a great decision. And so we've been just kind of promoting it and getting it out and doing more creative things with it.
And
That's
Peter,
exciting.
you met. Oh, sorry, Kiana. And
No, you're totally fine. I was just saying what you're saying.
And then Peter, you met your bandmates in your hometown of New York City, one of my favorite cities. Fun fact: a lot of people I love live in that amazing city. And how much background influences your sound?
Well, it's everything. I think one of the reasons why 4 Trips Ahead stands out in terms of the hard rock kind of metal, prog, whatever we're labeled this week, pantheon. I just this is kind of like hard rock music with good melody and and something to say. I think in New York City it becomes a stew. So you're mixed in with all these different musical influences, and you're exposed and you grow up kind of surrounded and hearing all sorts of different types of music and playing all sorts of types of music. Because when you're a musician, I think that you should always be playing all sorts of stuff. You might gravitate towards something that connects with you more, and that becomes what you play. Like in our case, it's hard rock, music and with a lot of different elements. But New York is such a rich environment, and you learn a lot. And if you want to survive in the city and build an audience and a following, you have to be good at what you do, and you have to perform. New York audiences have seen everything, so they're not easily impressed. So if you can kind of stand your ground in New York and kind of make a name for yourself and perform, that means, when we've gone outside, of New York and played, we've been able to totally hold our own because we're kind of used to the heavy scrutiny and I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, like you have to be a fast learner to really kind of stand out in the city. And I think that's a great thing. So when we've been able to play out in other places outside and done tours, we've gotten such a strong response because we're kind of used to knowing what audiences want and knowing how to play to a level that I think all bands and all musicians should play to. What we get normally is kind of people being shocked that we actually kind of reproduce a lot of the harmonies live and that we can kind of do it. Because I think a lot of newer artists sound great on record, and then you go to shows and you're left feeling lackluster or feeling let down. So I don't think we do that at all.
That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely have to have thick skin in the city, I feel like.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, they say if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere, right? That's it. And fun fact for me is one of my favorite terms from New York, because I'm from Louisiana, so I'm anything over 3 syllables or 3 syllables or above it's just a struggle for me. But bodega, bodega is just a word that I just, for some reason, I'm just like, man, that is the coolest word in the whole wide world. So, just a weird thing I just threw out there. So let me change subjects. So
bodega means is like a loving term here for all New Yorkers. They're native New Yorkers, and my drummer is his background's from Puerto Rico, so you know how we do. But all New Yorkers, like there's certain terms like bodega, which is a good thing. That's a place of warmth, Yeah,
I had trust me. I had to Google it first time I heard it. I was like, "What the heck is what are they talking about?" But I'm good now, though. I'm good. So I recently read a quote about your band that said, 4 trips ahead slickly combines the sounds of 70s hard rock, a smidgen of prog rock sensibilities, and the outside the boxness of alternative rock to create a sound that is both familiar and uniquely their own. That's a long quote, real good quote too. For those who aren't familiar with prog rock, how would you best describe the genre?
Wow. Yeah, I know we get that tag, that prog rock thing. And it's short for saying progressive rock and like progressive music. So I don't think we're prog rock in the same way a group like Dream Theater or a group like Rush or a group like Emerson, Lake and Palmer or Yes or something like that is prog rock. Where they're doing a lot of music that is very different and has all sorts of time signatures all the time, and sometimes could be a little more challenging to listen to. Might not be the first thing you pick up, but if you become like a muso or you like more challenging sounds, that's kind of where you gravitate. We love a lot of those bands, and they're big influences on us. So, but I think that we combine it. We also really love melody, and we love songs. So a lot of prog rock songs can tend to be a lot longer because they're kind of creating movements and they're trying to say many things within songs. But I think our sensibility about it is that we kind of have we like changing some of our time signatures or doing things that are a little more challenging in spurts. So you'll hear, and I think a lot of great groups do that. I mean, even stuff like the Beatles, and obviously a lot of early Kinks stuff and certainly Pink Floyd, they did things like that too. But I think it was more in the context of like pop music. So I think we kind of come from the school where, just as we were talking about our influences before, we kind of sprinkle the progness without, but we certainly sound a little bit different than straight ahead rock and pop. So I think that that's where people kind of hear this prog thing going on. And maybe also because we use a lot of harmonies in our music. And like I said, there are a lot of interludes or passages where the time is a little less obvious. But I think it's done still in the context of writing good songs. I don't think we ever set out to write songs and say, okay, we're going to write something very complicated today. That's not what it is. If it appeals to us or if it's sincere and we're just feeling that way, we go that way. Or if we feel the song calls for it. Because we're about music at the end of the day and like wanting people to kind of feel connected to it. So we're not going out of our way to write really complicated things, but sometimes that happens. And I think certainly going back to the questions before talking about the pandemic, I think also when you have a lot of time to reflect and you're writing music, you can kind of sometimes get a little muso and write in your own head. But I think that it's really important as a band to really please yourself first. And the four of us really like it. We always just hope that other people will really like it too. And so we try to be true to ourselves and sell it that way. So some of the music kind of does that. And then there's some parts that are a little more straightforward, but I think we like to mix it up. But a lot of other people in the hard rock, metal kind of pop world, when they hear it, they say, oh, it sounds a little like prog. But I kind of hear it, groups like King's X or older groups like Living Colour, kind of do things like that. But newer groups, like even stuff like Disturbed, they do some stuff that's goes a little bit left at times, or groups like Lamb of God or Opeth, they do creative things. So I think that any group after a while, if you're playing together, you want to try to stretch the boundaries. And so sometimes people see that as being progressive. And I'll take that tag if that's what they're referring to.
Gotcha. So what would you like to be, what genre would, or do you not want to be put in a box at all? Do you just want to be?
I'm bad with that. No, I mean, I just call it like we're definitely, I think a safe place to start is like hard rock. But I don't know, like I think Americans are really caught up in categorization, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I get that, because commercially you want to sell something. So certainly we're not making Marvin Gaye records, or, we're not making, Steel Pulse albums, or, so, and I love R&B and reggae, but we're not doing that. So I get that. But I would probably say that we're more like, a hard rock band that incorporates a lot of different elements to our music.
That's great. No, I was listening to some of your tracks just a few weeks ago, Higher being one of them. And we talk about that connectedness and just connecting to the music. And instantly, I just wanted to sling my hair like around the living room and just rock out, because the music just has this really great energy about it. And you are so passionate with your delivery. Like, your music's contagious. And as a younger millennial, I just really felt connected to the music. And I could kind of feel like a purging of those emotions and kind of tap into what you were relating, in your music. So I guess, what source are you tapping into when you're creating music? And what are you channeling when you're creating? And how do you prepare to bring that same energy to the actual performance on stage?
Wow, you asked like multiple questions in one. They were all really good. So I think, it's funny. I don't really think too much. I don't want to sound like I'm not thinking about the music, but I don't overly analyze it as such. I feel like lyrically I'm paying a lot of attention. I like to tell stories and kind of connect to how I'm feeling. And I like being an observer, going back into being from New York. Our main studio is in the heart of Manhattan in New York City on 8th Avenue in Midtown. And so a lot of times I'm traveling late night, from rehearsals or to rehearsals, or I'm writing or going and thinking a lot while I'm traveling on buses and trains. And so that's when I kind of observe people and things. I think about what's happening locally, what's happening internationally. And kind of it all becomes stories. And then depending on the music and how we're writing and we get together, we're kind of jamming out ideas. I love this band because the four of us kind of throw ideas at one another, and no idea is off limits. And I think we're comfortable enough around each other to not be nervous about what the other three think. So a lot of times we're just like, hey, what do you think of this? Or we're trying things, or things come up. And then when we connect on something, we feel it right away. And so my job as a singer and writer is to kind of capture the energy of the music and create like a story that I think connects and really is has like a lineage to what the music is saying and representing. So I kind of write sincerely, and a lot of times it's observation, or it's trying to take on characters. I like putting myself in other people's shoes and trying to imagine things, and other times I like talking straight from the heart and where I'm at. So I think that makes it easy because it's so sincere, and I'm not trying to necessarily emulate something or to write about something I don't know about. I have a lot of respect for people who try to do that. There are a lot of authors that do that. I'm not great at that. I like to tell stories that I know, or at least that I have an affinity to or connect with. And then I think that translates to how we record our music and how we perform live. And I think that people have been connecting really well with Four Trips Ahead, especially this last EP, because I think they hear that it's sincere and it's coming from a real place, and you want to rock out. I think, at your home or whatever, I think a lot of people connect that way when they feel it, and not to sound like lame, but if you don't feel something, I think it's really hard to kind of do it. Like I was really bad at doing cover songs and joining cover bands. I always have respect for musicians that can do that, who are like, I can learn other people's songs, I can perform them really well, and I can do these things for it. And I think there's a time and place for that. I'm terrible at that. Occasionally I'll do a cover song if I feel really connected to it, but I've always been about writing my own music and singing, because that's an experience that I can really directly correlate to. And so I think that's what you're picking up on, and other people connect to it. So I don't know if that's a long, convoluted answer, but that's kind of like the idea is just, you have to write from a place that you feel connected with and you feel is true. And sometimes it leads you to dark places. And sometimes it leads you to really recognize things that you didn't know about yourself. So I feel like a lot of the music for me, when I sing, I can really tap into the joy, the pain, the insecurity, loneliness at times, and redemption at other times. I can kind of tap into all those feelings because I'm writing from it from a sincere place.
So speaking of your creativity and your emotions, I cannot speak. I'm so sorry. I was just really drawn into your answer, and then I forgot it was my turn to speak clearly, so I apologize. But so speaking of your creative process, the band's latest song, Remnants, it reflects on passion behind your emotions as well. So what's the story behind that single?
Okay, well, the song, the EP is called Remnants, but the single you're talking about, the first single, Remnants, that is, wow, how do I encapsulate that quickly? So it's about the idea of, it's about the idea of recognizing you're in a place and you're kind of maybe at a job, or you're at a stage in your life where you feel like, something is like you've had the wool pulled over your eyes, and you've been kind of following along and doing what society tells you to do. And then you start to recognize that, or maybe feel like maybe you're more of a pawn and less of someone that has power over their destiny, that kind of really has an ability to move forward on their own, and you feel a bit trapped. And then you start questioning kind of what's happening in general. You kind of see yourself within a sea of ants, where a lot of people have that and are not maybe questioning in the same way they should be. And then asking yourself, like, why am I in this situation? And should I break out of it? And then watching, and there are other, but each verse has a little bit of a different kind of take. And I don't want to explain the whole story away, because I like people to kind of take their own things in it. But it's the idea of questioning stuff, and then feeling that I wrote it from a place where I felt like a lot of people that kind of don't fit the norm and are like leaders and people that are pioneers that kind of take chances. A lot of them become our martyrs and people that we really connect with. And then we recognize that they made some sacrifices because they didn't want to be in this sea They felt that other people should have more and deserve more. And so there's a refrain that says, why do I remain? The idea that like, if I don't feel so good here, and why am I here? Kind of, why am I doing this? And is there a way that we can break out of it? So the idea of remnants is kind of like what's left behind, right? Pieces, like the literal definition is like what's left behind. So in this case, it's kind of thinking about what's left behind for all of us. Do we stay here and kind of just keep eating the soup, so to speak, or do we keep, going and doing the same things, or do we recognize this and maybe say, can we carve our own spaces? Can we find some happiness here, while we're here, because this time is really limited. So it's one of those places. So there's a darkness or a dark underbelly to it, and you certainly hear it in the song. It's very powerful, but it could also be seen as a bit of a rebirth too, where you kind of see these things and you go through this painful realization only to kind of be reborn and say, I want to do things a little differently. Because the end of the song says, you hear me calling. So we're not sure, is this person calling because they're frustrated and they're ending it all? Or are they calling because, they want to get out of this sinking hole or this ship, and they kind of want to give themselves over to something new and take that chance and dive. So I like leaving it kind of, a lot of our songs are left kind of unresolved. You can blame me lyrically for that, but
no, I love that though, because it's never ending. Life's never ending. And when I listened to that song, I felt like I was coming out of a tunnel. I just felt like I was like following the light and coming out of a tunnel. That's just kind of how I felt listening to that song, which is life in a nutshell, I feel like.
Beautiful. I'm glad it connects with you that way.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, it definitely hits on like the journey of life, right? And you grow up and you learn things a certain way because of where you grew up or who you grew up around, and then at some point in life you start start questioning things that you learned, and you take some stuff with you, but then you unlearn some stuff that maybe was good for that point in time in your life, but not good at the certain point in your life. So it's definitely a very deep subject when you kind of tap in and make people think. So I'm glad that EP was able to kind of make people think about just life in general. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's also why why it's connecting with people that way, because the 5 songs had this similar theme. So that's why we kind of recorded them together. We had them ready, and they kind of had a theme, a loose theme, which is why the EP is called Remnants. And it's the idea of what do you leave behind, what do you trade off, and like you said, kind of reassessing yourself as you go through life. Certain things that you connected with either change, or sometimes they grow deeper. A lot of my connections to certain things mean more now, and they kind of stay with you. And then there are other things which just kind of naturally fall off, and that's okay. You see that, but the idea is being true to yourself and start recognizing like, what, do I need material things to make me happy, or are those distractions? Do people take things from you emotionally that leave you feeling maybe scarred or feeling a little more hurt than you should? And can you shed that? So there are remnants of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that defines you, so it's all these relationships kind of intertwined in these songs.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the Remnants EP is now streaming on all platforms. So for all our folks out there watching, go listen to the Remnants EP. And so for rock fans who have yet to kind of tap into the greatness of your band, what song from the project would you recommend them listen to first?
Oh, wow. That's hard. I would just say listen to like the whole thing. The EP is only 5 songs. I would say listen to the whole thing, but I would probably start with the singles that are released. So we released Remnants, which was first. And that seems to connect with people really well. And then there's also It's All Right, which I think is a great song and also connects. It's our second single. And we have the new one, which I can't remember who mentioned that they really liked it, but our newest single that it's going to be officially coming out as a single in the coming weeks is called Higher. And that's kind of also talking about the theme of getting over and feeling better and reaching for, better when you don't feel so good. But Higher is a good song. So any of those 3 I would start with.
Yeah, I think Kiana mentioned about slinging her hair. in her living room, and I'm for right now. I'm a little bit jealous because I'm the only person on this podcast that can't sling their hair at all. So thank you, Kiana. Appreciate you for making me feel better.
Of course, I'll sling it a little extra hard for you. Also, while we're on the topic
we
of
do have
energy,
someone in the comments. We do have someone in the comments, Kiana, that wants you to sling your hair. So just know that's been requested.
You got yourself in trouble for that. Yeah.
You know what? There might be an opportunity for you guys to see that for sure, actually. But we were speaking about just the good energy, Peter. Like, you brought so much great energy to us today. The things that you've been saying. Obviously, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Four Trips Ahead, viewers, you should. Their music is just so, like, it resonates with you, and it really gets, that energy just going. And right now I'm a really big on astrology. That's how I am. So it's the United States Pluto return. Mars and Venus are dancing together in the sky right now. So there's so much good energy and energy for change and energy for us to just get out there and do what we do what we want to do and kind of move ahead. So that's really exciting. But since we have you on live today, Peter, and the military community is watching, what would be some of your gems that you would like to share with our nation's heroes?
Wow. I feel first thing I want to say is that I like my how do I say this in a quick way? First thing is the amount of respect and the love that I have for all of you that have taken the time to sacrifice for our country and for our safety, and also for how we're seen and how we're viewed in the world is huge. So I have a deep, dear connection, and I have many close friends and people I've grown up with that, went into the military in different offices. So all of you on this panel and all of you who are listening and watching, the greatest amount of respect that I can share in a succinct way goes out to you, and also to you and your families, because we're going through very tough times now. And I think it's just amazing that you've all chosen to give your lives to service. And just for all of you to know that it means a great deal to us. And if it's not mentioned enough, it should be. I see myself as a musician, and within this band, my little contribution to this earth is to try to make people sometimes forget the rough situations they're in, or to see kind of a way out of not good situations, or to question, and then sometimes just to have a great time and to forget everything that's kind of holding you down. So my feeling is, I don't know if I would give words of wisdom or anything like that. I don't think you need that from me. But I think my hope is that the music that we put out can inspire you, fire you up when you need it, to get you through wherever you're at. And more importantly, to connect you to, I think, a global community, because music is a universal language. So what's been great is that our music has kind of been, our labels from Europe, so they've been able to kind of really get our music to a lot of different channels and places we never imagined. We have like a lot of love from South America and different parts of Europe and all over the US and Canada. And so it's been really, really life affirming for us. It kind of brings back the energy. It becomes cyclical, right? So the music that we're doing that has high energy, we put out, and then we feel that energy coming back from people that appreciate our music and that share it with other folks and watch our videos and so forth. So it's really, it's very special. So I would just say, I'm not sure if I'm quite answering your question, but I guess my words would just be that we're deeply inspired by your dedication, and it kind of, that inspiration goes back to us in real ways. And I think that being from the United States and feeling really safe more times than not within, this experiment of a democracy that we have, it means a lot to see people like all of you sacrificing a great deal of your lives to protect us and to make us feel that we all have a claim here. So I hope our music can inspire others and keep you all as excited and connected to one another.
Man, Peter, you can drop the mic, or no, you're hard rock, so you can smash the mic, throw it against the wall, like that's, you dropping some major gems today, and we appreciate what you do as well. Like you said, you provide an escape, or you make us think or just all the things that comes with music. Music lives forever, right? And so long after you're gone, your music will be there to influence the generation behind us. And so that's a crazy thing when you think about it. But we appreciate you sharing your art form with the world. Now we got a special video to share with our viewers today. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and cue the video. And then here's an exclusive live performance of Remnants.
Woo!
Right. you.
so much.
Yeah, it was really fun for us. We hadn't, we get together and rehearse, but we hadn't been back to the studio where we recorded the EP in a while. And so we kind of contacted them and said, let's do something special for Chief Chat. So it worked out really well.
Oh, that was a Chief Chat exclusive?
That was, you guys are the first to do. We recorded live for you. There are going to be some other things that are going to be on our social media sites, but we wanted you guys to be, this was live exclusive for you all.
So. Oh,
well, awesome. I gotta make the noise. Chief Chat exclusive.
Oh my God. So we loved that, obviously. I loved that. I loved the lyrics so much. And I know I talked briefly how when I listened to it, I felt like I was kind of coming out of the darkness into the tunnel. One of my favorite lyrics in that song actually is you see it turn in their favor. And I feel like you're in the thick of it and you feel like you've been wronged. You're like the person that wronged me, everything's happening. But at the end, it's almost like there's a different path for you. I don't know. That got a little deep, but I just like love that song because it's a good reminder that like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And our fans loved it too. And we have a lot of questions in the comments. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, but we did have one from Chris. And he's asking that wall of vinyl behind you. How many albums do you own? And how do you know what you're looking for?
All right, Chris. I don't know where Chris is from. So I'm going to do a quick thing here. It's a little bit crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we call so listen, before people lose their mind and they're going to be alive people, they'll be like, really? That's all you got? I have, but I call this thing, this all behind me is like homework. It's kind of like, it really is that way. Like I listen, I love music. I grew up around music. So when a lot of people kind of had other things, I never got rid of my records. So, I mean, these are from when I was a child to now. So that's the one thing I kind of, other than, our own musical instruments and endeavors, the only thing I really spend money on for me is records and music. So, and the way I do it, Chris, really simply, I know you're going to laugh. He's probably gonna be like, what a wise guy. But I just put everything in alphabetical order. I don't have time. Those record guys that are into genres and, years they came out. I mean, within an artist, that I have, I'll have like all their records in the order they released them. But I put everything in alphabetical order. So John Coltrane is mixed in with Aretha, and is mixed in with AC/DC and, and whatever else I'm listening to. This morning I was listening to Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. So everything's in alphabetical order, Chris, because I'll tell you, if I put something back in the wrong place, that's it. It's gone.
It's lost forever.
So, yeah. So a lot of it has to do with my anal retentiveness, but more of it is practical. You just put it all together. And I also feel like I like listening to music that way because I feel like, just like I don't like my music to be kind of encapsulated in one. I listen to all sorts of stuff. So I mean, whether it be something like Bob Marley and the Wailers, or if I'm listening to, I don't know, I have the new Saxon record, which is like classic metal record from, metal band from the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s from England. I like putting my music in alphabetical order so I can just find it easy. But also I never know where my mood's going to take me and what songs I wake up listening to. And also I find when we're about to go into record, when we record our new records, I like listening to a lot of different music. And in particular, I like listening to records that are produced really well. I produce the records with 4 Trips, and so sonically, it's very important for me to listen to records I consider great sounding albums and why they sound great, and they're also just inspirational to me. So, yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, Chris. But alphabetical is the way to go. Forget anything else that you're doing.
And we did have, Julie was asking what your musical influences are, or who.
Ooh. Wow. That's a Chief Chat unto itself. It's all over. So a quick way of answering this question is, so my mother was from Ukraine and my father was from Jamaica. So, and they were both my mom was a singer amongst other things and had been on recorded like traditional Ukrainian choral music and traveled and toured with her chorus. And they were from New York City. They were very popular at what they did. My father, grew up listening to jazz and ska music. And my mom and dad loved reggae music and loved jazz and loved pop and all sorts of stuff. So I grew up listening to everything from the Beatles to Don Drummond's and the Scatolites to Nina Simone to a ton of other things all in between. So I grew up with all these differences. And then I grew up at a really cool time where music was kind of going all over the place. So my influences are really, I know it's such a corny response and people are like, oh, it's lame how you're responding, but it's literally all over the place. I went to music and art and I was an art major, but I also did music. And so you become a sponge. So I love everything from really heavy metal stuff like Meshuggah, and I like early Pantera. And then I'll turn around and I'll love something like, I think Marvin Gaye's What's Going On is the best record almost ever made, or the Wailers' Burnin', or Nina Simone's Pastel Blues. I also love groups like King's X. I love early Aerosmith. I'm a huge Queen fan. I'm a huge Thin Lizzy fan. Those are artists I consistently go back to. But as a band, we listen to so many things. My guitar player went to school and he went to NYU and he studied music theory and learned jazz stuff. My bass player also, and my drummer are both all formally musical trained, and they listen to all sorts of different music. So, we love Peter Gabriel, we love Seal, but then we'll turn around, we'll love like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and stuff like that. So it's so all over the place. And I know it sounds like it, but it really is, which is why kind of when you listen to Four Trips, you'll hear, it's definitely hard rock and metal people like it too, but you'll hear other influences kind of floating in and out, which is why we get that prog tag. So yeah, sorry for the long convoluted answer, but it's true.
Oh no, we're loving it. And you're getting so much love in the chat, and everyone is so excited that you're here with us today, and we can't thank you enough for being here. But yes, lots of hearts are blowing up on my phone right now, so lots of hearts and lots of likes.
I'm sending that right back to you all. Thank you.
So Peter, you've also coined the phrase reclaim rock music. So this is not only a phrase, but it's also a movement. So can you tell us about what reclaiming rock music really means to you?
Yeah, I feel like I can be blamed for that. I think a lot of times when we talk after we are rehearsing or while we're recording, you kind of have those conversations where you kind of, maybe I don't want to say complain, but you kind of let out stuff and you air out your grievances. Usually we don't have grievances with one another. It's just in general. And one of the things we found was going on is that I think that sometimes you're sold what, like a music or what you're supposed to like, what you're supposed to eat, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to feel. And we were feeling for a while that a lot of the music that was supposed to be rock music or hard rock music really didn't rock at all. We thought it was kind of lame, to be honest with you. And we were kind of like, we were puzzled by things, whether it be like Grammy programs or like bills we'd see and reviewers would say things about like, this is the next rock movement. And we'd say like, this isn't really rock. It doesn't get me excited, and again, I grew up really being exposed to great rock music and rock being, when I say rock, something that's heavy, but still like had good melody and caught you, made you feel really energized in the day. My first great love, and probably one of my, because I'm maybe from New York at the time I grew up in, like I was a huge Kiss fan, like crazy Kiss fan. To this day I am, right? Even their sillier stuff I kind of tolerate because I love, but what I loved about them as a kid was, besides the escapism and the makeup and the awesome performance stuff, that's incredible. But what I loved about them is that they always just made me feel like, they made me want to get up and go. Like they rocked, you kind of were like, yeah, you listen to a Kiss record, you're like, yeah, let me take on the day, whether I was in fourth grade or whether I was a college undergrad or whatever. And I feel like a lot of rock music kind of lost some of that, maybe over intellectualizing, maybe more often corporate entities get involved and they start kind of messing with the special sauce and you forget why you're doing it. So the idea for us was we start out making like these ultra indie records and just kind of, we're going to make records that aren't necessarily the cool thing. When we kind of came out on the New York scene, nothing was sounding like us. I mean, I don't think anything sounds like us now, but I mean, in those days, it was really like slim pickings. And a lot of people were like, what are you doing? We didn't fit kind of the college rock radio format. We didn't fit in neatly to any box. So we just kind of decided to kind of stake, claim, put up a flag and say, well, we're reclaiming rock music. Not what you define it as, but we're reclaiming it. Because what you guys think is rock music and what we know is rock music is very different. Not in an exclusionary way, but actually just trying to say, actually, I thought we're trying to put down the flag and say, like, this is all rock music. And it should rock, and it should be like energetic, and it should be sincere, and it should be played with people that can play. And that when you go to a show, you go, wow, that was great. And you saw, us supposed to give you that energy, warts and all, a little bit of blood on the tracks, so to speak. But it's supposed to be real. And I think that's kind of where the reclaim rock music kind of hashtag or little saying came up for us. And it's also kind of to remind us like, hey man, we're doing okay. We might be on these waters, these uncharted waters alone, but it's okay because we know that like there's a lineage and there's a history of making exciting music, and we should bring it back to the fore.
Awesome. Hey, talk your talk, Peter. Talk your talk. He's like, what are y'all doing out here in the world?
But speaking of energy and just going to a live show, so like you said, it gets you excited to hear really good rock music or music in general in the flesh, in person. So when will fans get a chance to hear you and 4 Trips Ahead in person this year?
That's a great question. It's been so frustrating because, and as for fans and for all, music lovers and arts lovers, like trying to get to a show or trying to do tours, things are kind of starting and stopping. For us, it was very frustrating because we'd hoped to actually go out and do some shows in Europe a couple summers ago. We were hoping we had to cancel an appearance last fall for the Richmond Music and Film Festival that we were selected for. There were a couple shows in the fall that we were supposed to do in the city, but the pandemic was really bad and we had to cancel those, or we kind of never fully committed because we knew that it could be a possibility. So we're hoping that we haven't set any formal dates, but we're really looking to try to play some shows in the spring. Things in New York and New York State are gotten much better. So we're hoping to do some hometown things and then see what the possibilities are. So I'm hoping like May-ish, June-ish, and then into the summer and the fall that we'll start like playing regularly like we were. That's kind of that's the dream. And then at the same time, we're not being lazy. We're trying to make sure that we continue working on new music. We've been working on a bunch of stuff and writing new things. And the idea is to kind of record some more music to release a full length, maybe either late this year or probably realistically early next year.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have to go out to New York for those shows for sure.
Yeah, or hopefully make it to yeah, you guys are always well. You have to let us know, but we're hoping that we can also move and do some shows down south and just like play out, But I think everyone's being a little cautious. Even you're seeing big artists kind of are canceling and starting shows and whatever. So, and it takes on a lot. So it's a reminder, I think a lot of people in the music industry are kind of testing the waters down. So we're hoping to test some waters in the coming months. Because we're dying to play out live. We miss the energy. We miss playing for fans, and especially because we don't want this EP to kind of go out there and be out and just with no live shows behind it. So, yeah.
And so the band's lyric music video for Higher came out in December. What can fans expect soon from 4 Trips Ahead?
So the video for Hire is actually, it's funny, it's kind of secret. People like they saw it as kind of an exclusive. It was debuted by Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, which is a great hard rock metal magazine out of Canada, and they did it. But it's going to be officially really launched. You can kind of see it now if you kind of find our social media and find the magazine links. But we're going to actually formally release the video in a couple weeks when we release the single. So Hire should be coming out soon. We were trying to do it for the end of this month, but some of our artwork got backed up. So we're going to, once all that gets straightened out and everything, it should be released in the coming weeks. And then they'll see the video for Hire, which is a third single. Normally we do like only a couple, but we feel super strong about this last EP. So we're going to be releasing that. And the cool thing is, so you guys, Chief Chat debuted Remnants live. We also recorded two other things that have been edited and recorded from the EP. So there'll be a live showing of It's All Right, and there'll be a live performance of Hire as well. So you guys will be able to see all that in the coming weeks. We're going to kind of let it out slowly but surely.
That's incredible.
No, that is so exciting. As a reminder for our viewers, the Remnants EP is out now on Apple Music, Spotify, and Tidal. You can also rock out to their music videos on YouTube. Peter, before we say goodbye, where can fans go to follow you and keep up with Four Trips Ahead?
Well, thank you for asking. So you can find us on the web. Like our website's great, fourtripsahead.com is pretty updated. But our social media stuff on Facebook, we've seen for some reason people still love Facebook for Four Trips Ahead big time. So, check us out there. But we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. If you write out FOUR Trips Ahead, you can find us. And please follow us and let us know and give us your feedback about our videos and songs. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. So we got a kind of special surprise for you, Peter. You mentioned a band that was very influential, and so for our Chief Chat viewers, this episode is available on YouTube and Spotify. You can rewatch with your friends and catch up with the past episode. So now on Tuesday, March the 1st at 11 a.m., we got Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Gene Simmons to join us on Chief Chat. So man, we're gonna have to make sure you get that link, Peter, so you can watch the Gene Simmons interview next week.
I'm extremely jealous. I met him a long time ago when I was 17 years old. I met him, and you hear horror stories because as a Kiss fan, I have a lot of friends that worked for the Kiss organization at different times, or just people that were fans and were like, man, that guy is not a nice guy, and man, he treated me like this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I gotta say, I met him and Paul Stanley when I was 17 at a party I shouldn't have been at. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I was able, and I blame my parents. My dad was actually the one that got me into this place. So, you can talk about his parenting amongst yourselves. But he got me into this special event that they were having. It was invitation only. And I was 17, trying to look like I was at least 21 in New York at the height of the late 80s. And I was able to go there to this event. And it was at this really swanky place. And I met a lot of famous people there that night, and I kind of got the gumption, and I met both Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, and they were really nice. And Gene actually said, "Hey, man, I'll tell you if I have the time. I'll tell you a really quick story with Gene, which will break some of the rumors." But I was standing behind people waiting to meet him as an aspiring 17-year-old singer. Now I'm waiting behind. He was talking. All these people were chatting him up. And he kind of looked a little bored, and he kind of looked over, and he caught my eye, and I caught his eye, and he reached over, this guy who was in the middle of chatting with him, and just said, "Hi, I'm Gene Simmons." And I said, I said, "Hi, I'm Peter." I said, "I don't mean to interrupt your conversation. I was just waiting to speak to you." He goes, "Oh, did you need something?" I said, "No, I just wanted to tell you that thank you for changing my life and being an awesome, musician, blah, blah, blah." And then he turned to the guy he was talking to. He said, "This is why I do this. I don't do this to listen to you pitching things to me." And then he looked me in the eye and he said, "It was great meeting you, Peter. Hopefully I'll catch you later." And I thought, wow. So I was happy. I was good for the night. thought, wow, that's totally different than everything I'd read. So I was on like cloud 10, as you can imagine. Sat down at this party, was chatting up some people, trying to look older. And Gene Simmons, about a half hour later, sat down like right next to me. And I was talking to, there were a couple women there. And of course, Gene, being his reputation, I know all of you are shaking your head, you know, he proceeded to tell dirty jokes for like 15, 20 minutes, just one after the other, funny stories. And it was just so sweet. And I just started talking to him and asking him questions about stuff. And he was super cool. Now, I don't know what's happened since, but I will say that as a 17-year-old musician growing up, and he was already a superstar, I had to say that, and I doubt he would remember that, but I have to say he was super cool, and it was really great being from a fellow New Yorker, you know, and he's from Queens where I live. It was very cool. So it's super cool that you were interviewing such an awesome influencer and great guy. So I'm sure it's going to be a great talk.
Yeah, yes, I can say it's going to be very entertaining. I can already probably envision how entertaining this conversation is going to be. But we'll definitely name drop you, Peter, during the interview. So
please do. That would be an honor. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. And so you could also tune in on 11 a.m. on Thursday, March the 10th, when we welcome renowned test pilot and astronaut, retired Lieutenant General Tom Stafford, to the show. So, man, Peter, we appreciate your time, and you, like I said, you've dropped some awesome nuggets, and you've shared some of your wonderful music with us, and we just really appreciate you kind of taking some time out of your busy schedule to kind of be on our show and show us some love. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for shouting out the military community. We're going to support you. You're such a good spirit. You're, like Kiana said, the vibes are on fleek or on 1,000 or whatever they say nowadays. But yeah, all that, man. You were a great interview. We enjoyed you. We appreciate what you do to like I said, give us something to kind of channel our deep thought and just entertaining, just to get us out of the craziness that we deal with on a regular basis. So we wish you and the band the best, and thank you so much. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you and your time. It was a great time today. And thanks for listening to 4 Trips Ahead. It means a lot to us.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind hanging on to after we get off the live to kind of say our formal goodbyes. But again, thank you so much, and Chief Chat out.